Hello guys, Anysu here, and today we are going to talk about my second most favorite offlane hero, Dark Seer. This hero is by far one of the most underrated heroes in all of Dota. He's so versatile, and I think he's probably the most creative offlaner out there. Like, the amount of things this hero can do is unlimited, man. The creep manipulations this hero can do is insane. He has such high teamfight potential with vacuum and wall. This combo can just win teamfight just by itself alone. And if you have like some good AoE heroes on your team that you can synergize the vacuum with, this hero can just win teamfights just by himself, man. It's crazy. Also, this hero is kinda easy to play. He's not hard to learn, and I would recommend everyone that likes to play offlane giving this hero a try. He's really worth learning and really underrated. And also another positive thing is, there are not a lot of Dark Seer players out there, so people are not used to play against this hero because they rarely ever face a Dark Seer. So especially in lower MMRs, people are they just don't know what to do against this hero. So give it a shot, and let's start with the guide. Let's first take a look at Dark Seer's spells. Every time you're allowed to get a point in Iron Shell, you wanna get the spell. This spell is your signature spell, and it's so strong, especially in the early game. The first choice you get is at level 2. You can either choose between Surge or Vacuum, depending on the situation you're in. If you can get a kill, you can get Vacuum. And if you're more in the defensive position, I would advise getting Surge. Then you want to get the other spell at like level 4. So you get 1 point in Surge and 1 point in Vacuum at level 4. What I would advise you guys to do, you can just hold the skill point if you don't need to use the spell at level 2. And then just see which situation occurs. Like if you need the Vacuum, you just put the point in Vacuum right when you want to use the Vacuum. Same for Surge. So that's what I do in most games. I just hold the skill point unless I'm like 100% sure I will need this specific spell. Then yeah, like you want to max out Iron Shell first and then put 1 point in each of those spells. In most games you want to take your ultimate level 6 unless it's like a really bad wall target. But like 9 out of 10 carries are pretty good to wall early on. So I would just advise getting this spell in like nearly every game at level 6. And then you want to max out Surge first, and after this you want to max out Vacuum. With the level 12 point in wall, if you want, you could skip this to later. After you have taken all your talents and all the other spells. Like the scaling of this spell is not so great, it's only 15% more damage and like 10% more slow for 1 second. So you could potentially skip this spell, but if it's a good wall game, if the enemies have strong heroes to wall, then I would definitely recommend getting the second point in level 12. And for the talents, it's the same. In most games you want to skip the talents up until later point, like 15 and 16 you want to get the talents, because the spells are just better in most games, but there are some games where having like armor at level 10, for example, is pretty good. When you die a lot and they have a lot of physical damage, or if you want to apply more pressure with the shell, then maybe take this Iron Shell radius talent at level 10. But this is like the standard build of Dark Seer that you can nearly go every game, I think. And for the talents itself, you can probably take all talents of Dark Seer, like every talent is pretty good. I think the Iron Shell radius is better in most games. Unless you die a lot, then you can take the armor. For the 15 talent, if the enemies have really good wall targets, you could also get the plus 25 wall illusion damage. Like 25% damage is a lot. So against heroes like Morphlings, Phantom Lancers, Terrorblades, I will definitely get this talent. But as like a standard in most games, you want to get the Vacuum AoE just to catch more people in your Vacuum wall. For level 20, I think in most games you want to go for shell damage, like 60 damage is a lot. Shell itself deals 90 damage, so adding 60 damage gives like 75% more damage on Iron Shell. It's like nearly applying a second shell. So this talent is really strong, but also the Wall of Replica cooldown against those heroes like PLs and Terrorblades can also be really strong, right? So you can consider taking this, but in most games I'd get the Iron Shell damage. And for the 25 talent, this is a really hard choice. Both spells are really good. I tend to take the Parallel Wall in most games, just so we have more chaos in the team fights. Like the wall itself slows, and if you correctly place the walls, you have like kind of like 2 ice walls. You can compare it to an ice wall nearly, right? With more illusions. Like you have these 2 walls that slow, and you have so much chaos just because of all the illusions. But also, if the enemies are kiting all your cores a lot, then this talent can also be really great. So in Dark Seer, you have a lot of choices for all the skill builds. Like his skill builds is really versatile. The only thing that does not change is getting like Iron Shell on 1 to 7. The rest of the skills are like pretty interchangeable. In some games maybe you want to max out Vacuum and keep Search only at like 1 or 2 points. And then the talents are all pretty interchangeable. So this hero, you can get really creative and skill this hero according to the situation that you're in. But especially when you're just starting to learn this hero, and you're not really confident on the hero, then I would advise just going for the skill build in like every game. This skill build is really solid and it works in like 9 out of 10 games. Now let's take a look at the items of Dark Seer. For the starting items, this is the item build you want to go for in most games, where you get the Tango, Healing Salve, just some items to get HP regen and to heal up after an engagement. Then you want Quelling Blade, just to get more last hits. And on Dark Seer you want some mana regen early on, right? Like this hero needs a lot of mana, so all the items we're going for in the early game will provide you with mana. I like to go for 1 Mango and Sage Mask. In most games the Sage Mask is just like constant 0.7 mana regen, and then the Mango is just like on use, just gives me a new shell. You could also change the Sage's Mask against like a Ring of Protection, for example, which costs the same, if you think that the enemies will hit you a lot early on. But for me, this is the item build I buy in 9 out of 10 games. And for the early game, I think you want to build a bottle first item nearly every game. You could potentially go for a Soul Ring on Dark Seer, it's also not bad. But the thing with the Soul Ring is, you will lose a lot of HP if you spam the Soul Ring. And if you compare the Soul Ring to a bottle, the bottle doesn't remove your health, but gives you additional health, right? So with bottle you gain health and mana, and with Soul Ring you gain mana but lose health. And especially if you're playing solo in the lane, I just like bottle way more. And then also with Dark Seer you can just TP base and search to the lane again, and then you have a full bottle. And then also your post 4 can refill the bottle. And then with the bounty runes in the triangle, you can also just grab the bounty rune if your mid hero doesn't have a bottle. So there's a lot of potential for a bottle on offlane Dark Seer, in my opinion. And against most lanes you want to grab a stick early on, just to get even more mana and some more HP. Same for raindrops. Like the raindrops, we buy this for the mana regen. Sure, the damage block is fine, it's pretty good. But the mana regen is what we want. We just want so much early mana regen so we can keep spamming more Iron Shells on the wave to get more farm. Then your first major item that you want to buy in most games is a hood. This item will just give you a lot of HP regen, will make you really tanky so you can sustain in the lane. Like Dark Seer is a hero that wants to solo lane most of the time. After you reach like level 5, I'd say, your offlaner will probably leave the lane. And then having an item like Hood that allows you to play really aggressive, just farm neutral camps, cut waves and stuff. This item is really great on Dark Seer, I think. And you want to go for Arcane Boots, just to solve your mana problems. Like when you have Bottle and Arcanes and you just use like 1 or 2 Clarities, like you have no mana problems on this hero at all, I think. Then in the mid game you want to upgrade your magic wand, like your stick to a magic wand. And then you have a choice. there are some good aura items. It's like Pipe and Mech or Greaves. I think those are the items you want to buy like in most games, unless you need anything other specific. For example, like you can also rush a Lotus Orb in some games, but I just think you want to go for this aura items in most games. There's also this build where you buy Aghanim's first item, which is possible and it's not bad. But if you compare like those early aura items to the Aghanims, all those items, they cost less, right? Like with Mechanism, you spend nearly half the gold of an Aghanims for this item to have a use. Same for like the Pipe that we upgrade out of the hood that we already got anyway. Those items just cost way less compared to the Aghanims, and you have way more early impact with those kind of items. And also, all those items help your teammates, right? While Aghanims is more of a greedier item for yourself, kinda. Like it enhances your farm, and if you can manage to get an Aghanims, this item can be really great. But the thing is, the build up of this item is horrible for Dark Seer. The point where this item starts to become useful is once it is complete. But before that, every item that you buy out of those items doesn't help you a lot. Like your teammates don't care if you have an Ogre Axe on you, or like a point booster, or stuff of wizardry, right? It doesn't really provide anything helpful before you completed the full 4.2k gold. And if you compare that to like a Mechanism plus Pipe, like considering the fact that we already got a hood, and then after the hood you build like the Mechanism and the rest of the Pipe, which is around the same amount of gold as the Aghanims, those items provide way more value early on, and then also in a team fight, they are just stronger in most cases. So if you think you can get away with like a really greedy build and your team is safe and not losing the advantage you already got, then you can get away with building an Aghanims like first item after Arcanes. But especially if you're new to Dark Seer, I would just recommend going for these aura items first and then like building Dagger or Aghanims. Like the Aghanims itself, it's really great, but it's just so greedy, and in most games you just lose before you even get this, right? Just because you're kinda useless before you get it. But at the point where you get the Aghanims, you have double shell, you apply a lot of wave pressure. Like you can double shell every wave and the duration of the iron shell doubles. So this is pretty crazy. Like once you get this item is great. It's just the fact that before you get this item, like the build up doesn't provide anything for your hero. And that's something to consider when you want to pick this up. Talking about the other items, we have Blink Dagger. I love Blink Dagger on Dark Seer, man. Like if you hide in the trees and there's a teamfight breaking out, you can just counter initiate with this item. You just blink into 5 enemies, you vacuum all of them, you wall them with shell on yourself. Dude, the teamfight is just won in most games, right? Like if you manage to get a good vacuum wall, the teamfight is just won. Then for other good items, we have Shivers. If you manage to get a good vacuum wall and you use Shivers afterwards, people are just slowed so hard in your wall that the illusions will block all of them. They are slowed from the wall, they are slowed from the Shivers. This is just teamfight chaos madness, man. This item, I love this item, Dark Seer. Then in some games you just need to pick like a certain target that you really need to focus on, like a Morphling, for example, right? That you can just jump on, you hex him and you vacuum wall them and they just die to his own illusion. In those games, hex is pretty good. Then also in like the late game, you can upgrade your dagger to an arcane blink. Also refresher is pretty nice, so you just get double wall. And then in some games, Lotus Orb is also really great if you just need to reflect some spells. There are some like situational items that I want to quickly talk about. In some games where enemies have nearly no magic damage, instead of buying this hood, here you could also buy a Vanguard to make you more tanky. But in most games the hood is just better compared to the Vanguard on Dark Seer. Then you could potentially build a Crimson Guard with all those aura items, like especially if you're going for the aura build where you build the Greaves and Pipe and stuff. You could potentially also buy Crimson Guard. Then there's Heaven's Halberd. If you have to, maybe you can put this here. It's actually like pretty good if you're playing against like those Ursars, Templar Assassins, I don't know, like those bursty right-click heroes, Drow Ranger, just hit people in the fight, right? You can just take them out of the fight with this for 3 seconds or 5 seconds on range targets. Really strong. Then we have some utility items that in some games you just buy them the Force Staff. For example, if you're playing against Slark, I like buying a Force Staff. And then also if you have like a really strong hard carry that you could buff up with Solar Crest, can potentially be pretty good. You could also buy a Helm of Dominator if you would like to. I think this is more of a meme build and it's pretty hard to put off. But you can dominate like a Centaur creep with the Dominator. Then you can shell your creep, run around and farm creep waves with the creep. And in teamfights you can vacuum people onto the Centaur and then 5-man stun. So this is kind of like Ravage. If you manage to pull this off, this can be like game winning or teamfight winning. But I think it's really hard to pull off and will not happen a lot in many games. Then there's one build I want to talk about with you, where you can buy Shroud and or Bloodstone together with the Aghanims, right? Like if you want, like if you build Aghanims and you think you need to be like the scaling core in your team because your teammates are all pretty weak, then you could go for Aghanims with the Iron Shell talents and then build Eternal Shroud and Bloodstone. Both those items provide lifesteal, like magic lifesteal from your shells. And just both of them make you really tanky. They give you a lot of HP, they give you spell amp, they give you spell lifesteal amp. On the Bloodstone, you have double lifesteal built in both of those items. So if you have Aghanims, Shroud, Bloodstone, you're like a really strong core that is so hard to take down. If you apply like 3 shells like on you and your teammates, there's no way enemies ever going to kill you. You're just so tanky. You get like 200 HP per second just because of the lifesteals from the shells. And then you have the heal from the Bloodstone. But I think this is more like a meme build that you don't really want to consider. I just want to tell it to you, like in some games it can be pretty good, but in most games you just want to buy like those aura items and then some support items like Dagger, Shivas and Hex, for example. The last item we want to talk about is the Aghanim's Shard of Dark Seer. Now let's talk about the Aghanim's Shard. The Aghanim's Shard will give you an additional ability called Normal Punch. The Normal Punch has 14 seconds cooldown, and it will create an illusion that deals 80% of damage and takes 200% of the damage of the target that you hit with the Normal Punch. Also, the target that you hit will get stunned up to 2.25 seconds and take up to 250 damage, depending on the amount of units that you are running, like the distance that you are running before you hit the target. So to make great use out of this shard, you need to search up yourself or like dagger onto someone and then hit them with the shard. If you're just standing there for like 2 or 3 seconds and you just hit someone, they only get stunned for 0.2 seconds and get like 10 damage. The shard can be pretty good against heroes like the Morphlings, the Terrorblades, all those illusion heroes that just deal a lot of damage with right clicks, right? Anti-mage, for example. Against those kind of heroes, the shard is pretty good just because you get an additional illusion, but I would not recommend picking up this item like every game, just against certain heroes that this item is pretty good against. Now let's talk about when to pick Dark Seer and when not to pick Dark Seer. Basically, you want to look out for a POS 4 to play around that is melee, pretty beefy, and just makes use out of your Iron Shell and your Surge, right? So this can either be like Clockwork or Spiritbreaker and Bounty being like the top 3 heroes, I'd say. With Invisibility or Battery Assault and Charge, they just make such great use out of your Iron Shell. And then those 2 heroes also not like being pretty good. All of those heroes like to roam around early on, which is like after level 3, which is also good for Dark Seer because Dark Seer needs heroes that secure his like first 2 levels, but once he reaches level 3 or 4 or 5, that's when Dark Seer becomes pretty good alone. Like he doesn't need any help anymore once his hero is like level 5, right? So this is when all those heroes want to leave the lane anyway, naturally, and they're just pretty good Iron Shell carriers. So I like to play a lot with those POS 4s. Then for the carries, you just basically want to look out for melee carries that can make good use out of your shell and the surge. Like it's either carries that suffer from being kited, like Ursa for example, if Ursa gets kited, or like Wraith King for example, if those heroes get kited, they're pretty useless, right? But if you surge them up and they're at maximum movement speed, they just run down people. And then there are other heroes like Juggernaut and Spectre for example, they make great use out of your shell. Like Spectre for example, he's really tanky and he just stays on top of people so long, but the hero itself doesn't provide a lot of damage early on, so your shell just enables this hero to do stuff early on. Same for the Juggernaut. Juggernaut with spin and shell is just, wow, dude, this hero just does like 250 damage per second, like maybe 300 damage per second with spin and shell, like it's insane. You can just run down everyone with surge, spin and shell. And then we have heroes like Troll, PA and Lifestealer for example, also just make great use out of your shell and surge. And there are enemies you want to never pick Dark Seer in. Like especially being Oracle and Shadow Demon. If you face one of those heroes, please don't ever pick Dark Seer. You will cry, dude. Like the Oracle will dispel your shields on the creeps. Every time you put a shield on a creep, he will just use his Q and the shield is gone. Same for the Shadow Demon with his ultimate. Like the Shadow Demon is not that annoying in lane. He will probably just spam some Shadow Poisons on you, but that's not that bad. But the thing is, in the later game, when you wanna like search and shell your carry, this guy just puts ultimate on them and the search and the shell is like constantly dispelled, which is horrible, man. Like when someone has Shadow Demon ulti on him, the ulti applies a constant dispel every like, I don't know, like it was 0.1 second, something around this. And just dispels all your spells you use on them, so it basically makes you useless on the target that he uses ultimate on. So pretty annoying. Then there's Crystal Maiden. You can definitely play against the Crystal Maiden in lane, but it's just also really annoying. Like if the enemy is a good Crystal Maiden, she can pressure you a lot early on and then also just frostbite the creep, your shell. Like every time before the creep reaches the wave, she just frostbites the creep and the creep just dies. Same for Doom. If you see the enemies pick Doom, Doom will probably just run after you and just devour every creep that you put a shell on, which is also just annoying. And if you have a ranged carry like a Drow for example, and then a pos 4 like Elena, you definitely do not want to pick Dark Seer. Like you need at least one hero on your team that makes great use out of your shells, which is either like the melee carry or a melee pos 4. Ideally you want to have like both, like one good carry to make use out of your shell and one good support to make use out of your shell. This is like the best scenario, I think. Now we want to talk about the laning of Dark Seer, because Dark Seer's laning is really different from most other offlane heroes. This hero likes to do creative creep manipulation, and he really relies on that a lot to win his lanes, especially early on. Like this hero is so weak level 1, and you definitely need some tricks to make him work before he hits level 3. Like at the point when you hit level 3 and your Iron Shell does 50 damage, and then at the point when you're level 5 and your Iron Shell deals 70 damage, your laning becomes more and more easy. But at like level 1 and 2, this hero in most lanes is pretty weak. So he just chose the item build we were talking about. Just instead of the Sage Mask, he bought Ring of Protection. That's also something I was explaining earlier. Against lanes, you wanna, like, you expect to deal a lot of physical damage, like Windranger. He's playing as Windranger pos 5 here, and Ursa pos 1. You just expect to get hit a lot, right? And that's why he was building Ring of Protection. But in most games, he's also starting with the Sage Mask build. The first thing you want to do in every game, you want to shell the creeps right when they hit this tower, like a little bit before they reach your tier 1 tower. Either here or like here, right? You want to shell your melee creep. You don't want to shell the first one, you want to shell the second one, not the one that's in front. And then you will see the cooldown will start to reduce, and once the cooldown resets, it is right before the wave meets. By the way, he's blocking the creeps, also pretty important in Dark Seer. You don't want the wave to be in the enemy tower. And then when the cooldown is over, right before the waves meet, he's applying the second shell to the creeps. And then the first wave is really easy for Dark Seer, right? Ursa is pulling the creep aggro, but there's not a lot they can do to pressure Dark Seer early on. And then also what this did, they pushed the wave so quick that you as a Dark Seer are allowed to do one thing that you can do like basically every game, and this is you run here and you grab the second creep wave, like this creep wave that is over here. Let me actually put the perspective on there. You want to grab the second creep wave, right? Like with the double iron shell, you will always push the wave, and then you just run here and you grab this wave. In this situation, the Tusk is doing it for the Dark Seer, but as you saw, Khezu was already running here, preparing for a pull. Just because this is a high MMR game, Tusk understood that this is the thing they want to do with the Dark Seer. The Tusk was doing it. But in general, if your +4 is not doing this, just do it yourself. Like you double iron shell the first wave, the wave pushes, and then you immediately run here and grab the next wave. Like from here, you grab the wave. This is like at 54, 55 that you can grab the wave, and this means it is right before the creep spawn, right? And then you want to pull the creeps. Like imagine this being the Dark Seer right now. If you're playing Dark Seer alone and your support is not doing this. You will pull the creeps and block this camp. Like you either block this camp or this camp with the creeps. This allows you to pull the creeps over here without the enemies being able to pull any waves afterwards. Yeah, as you can see here, Dark Seer is just dragging the creeps right now. He's attacking them so they don't run back on the high ground, and he just statics the creeps in front of his tower without the tower hitting them. Why would we do this? As I said before, Dark Seer is really weak early on, and this allows us to get CS without spending mana. Like Dark Seer's spells are really expensive, right? And the only way this hero can make his lane work early on is with shells or creep manipulation. But if we would need like 1 or 2 more shells to push out this wave, we would just be out of mana before we even hit level 3 and before we get the bottle. But with this creep manipulation, that by the way works in every game, if you double shell and pull, there's nothing enemies can do about this. You can just farm this wave safely in front of your tower without needing to spend a single point of mana by this time. Like this wave, you just farm it completely for free. Enemies can't really contest you, you can just farm it here. And then also the second wave will just meet right in front of your tower as well. So you get 2 waves that you can farm for free under your tower, which brings you like really close to your bottle, or like every second game this is even enough for your bottle. Right, like now he's just shelling the wave again, so he can prepare for the next pulse later. Like this, he's just doing this all over again, pushing out the wave, and then he will prepare for a pull. You will see, like he did the shell. Now he's doing the second shell, so this will push the wave. And what he will do after, he will just do another creep manipulation. This time he's not running here grabbing the creeps, but they are grabbing those creeps. Like as you can see, Tusk is doing it, because they're like pre-mating. But if Tusk would not do it, then Khezu would just take the creeps over here. And this is what you want to do all the time as Dark Seer. You want to like push out the waves with your shell, and then do any form of creep manipulation. Either pull the enemy creeps from here in front of your tower, or like pull your creep wave in the hard camp, so you're allowed to farm this camp in front of your tower. Like as you can see here, this creep manipulation here allowed Khezu to just drag the creeps in front of his tower, or like farm them under the tower without needing any mana. So this wave, you just need to spend mana like every second or every third wave. And you still get last hits. And now he has his bottle. He has level 3, and there was nothing the enemies could do. Like he was basically full HP the whole time. Enemies didn't contest him at all. There was no way they could ever contest him, just because they played this way with like the first creep pull here and then this creep pull. And then at the point where Dark Seer hits level 3, the hero becomes pretty strong. Then he's just contesting this stack, right? And as you can see, he's grabbing the creeps again. He just doesn't even want to lane really. He just wants to like do this creep manipulation stuff all the time. Like this is how you want to play Dark Seer most of the time. And then he gets ganked and he just surges away. By the way, he gave the bottle to his Tusk, so he can maybe secure the rune with the bottle, which is pretty cool, but probably in your props your supports won't do this. But you can also just run base after you've used all bottle charges and mana. But here again, he's just pushing out the wave. And now he will probably run base. In this replay, we will take a look at the same. Just not played by Khezu, but played by me, right? I'm basically doing the same, putting a shell right before the tier 1 tower. I missed a block a little bit, but it's not that important. Then right before the waves meet, I will put in a second shell. I will actually speed up a little bit. I'm just like auto-hitting the wave, trying to get the last hits. And then, as we talked about before, I'll run behind the tower, grab the wave. Most of the time you want to run like this way, but I knew that this Luna was alone, so I wasn't afraid of just running like in tower range. But most games you want to rather run like this way and then drag the creeps from here. It's more safe, but I just felt like free to do it without any risk of dying. I grabbed the creeps, as you can see here, right? It's full minute. I want to rewind. Full minute, and I even do like this little stop here, just so the creeps are in the spawn box of the camp. Right, there's the spawn box, and this way the creeps are here. If I did it right, I could potentially block both camps, I think, but it's not that important. Like, if this camp is not blocked, that's also not a big deal. But you definitely want to block the small camp with the pull. Then I'm just running like circles over here for my creeps to meet. It's the same thing, just last hitting without spending mana for 2 waves here. Here this range creep run away for some reason, so I thought they pulled, and that's why I'm doing this. But I should just see as the wave here. Was a little bit of a misplay by me. And then, after the 2 waves, I hit level 3, I shell the wave to push it out again. Right, and then usually I will pull this creep camp by now, but I realized the enemies pulled this. So I'm just going to contest the pull, also fine. And then Patch was here, we just killed the Dark Seer, pretty nice. Not the Dark Seer, the Disruptor. Just a bonus kill, I'm going back to the wave again, and I do a pull. Right, like most people would just lane normally, but what I do is I pull. Again, creep manipulation, every time you can do like a creep pull or stuff on Dark Seer, it is really good. And I'm like contesting the pull a little bit, but again, once the second wave comes, I'm just staticking the wave in front of my tower. So I don't need to spend too much mana, I shell the wave to push out the next one. Here I think we even get a kill, like Patch hits a hook. I have this double shell on the creeps, right? So the creeps will attack Luna, we definitely win this trade for sure. As you can see, Luna is just losing 90% of HP just to those freaking creeps. I vacuum this guy. We kill him and Luna just dies to the Iron Shell creep, so we get a double kill, pretty nice. And from this point on, I'm nearly level 5. We just won this lane, so hard. Now let's take a look on how to play as Dark Seer in the mid game and how to move around the map with this hero. What I think is really important is that you just shell out waves, and then while the shell is doing something with the wave, like the wave is pushing by itself, you want to do something else, especially on other parts of the map. For example, like right here, by the way, I got Aghanims in this game because I was playing mid. Like, I'm probably the most farmed hero on my team right now, just so you guys know. I got Aghanims. And as Dark Seer, you want to occupy the most dangerous areas of the map most of the time. So in most games, this is like your safe lane. This tower is so hard to defend in most games, so you want to occupy this as Dark Seer if possible, right? And then what I'm doing here, I just double shell the wave. Right, I stay like a little bit in experience range. Still pushing at the wave, I get ganked a little bit here, but I don't really care. Like, I can just search away. I know that there are 3 people, I just double shell the wave again, and then I run away. Right, I don't want to be here. This shell is like dealing with this pressure at least a little bit. Right, especially with Aghanims. Then I farm 1 camp. And what I do... Okay, I farm another camp, because I mid. But yeah, I just run to another lane. I double shell the lane. And then, after I've put on those shells on the lane, I just leave right away. It's like the same here. I put double shell here, I leave. I put a double shell here, I leave. If I didn't have Aghanims, then obviously I would just put 1 shell here, right? Like the Aghanims itself gives 2 charges of Iron Shell, but even with just 1, I put shell here and I leave. I go somewhere else. I was about to farm like top, but then I saw this team fight going on here, so I TP'd there. By the way, there's a pretty good example for like a team fight. We can also show that. Like I was tipping here. I'm just waiting for the vacuum wall. We do vacuum right in the middle of them, put wall. We're killing this guy, the tower is defended. But what I was about to tell you guys, you wanna like shell all those waves and then run to another wave. Right, like then you wanna shell like this wave, for example. And while you're running to the other waves, you can farm like 1 or 2 neutral camps in the meantime. But you always wanna run to waves, especially the side lanes, and you wanna put 1 or 2 shells onto those lanes and then leave again, right? Like those shells alone that you put on side lanes, they make enemies have to deal with the wave. You don't need to be there anymore. Once you've put 1 or 2 shells on the wave does everything by himself and you are allowed to do stuff anywhere else. Either join the team fight or just farm up some jungle camps, right? Which will either help your teammates or enhance your farm. And this shells, like if you put a creep wave here, this creep wave, instead of like meeting right over here, it will push all the way up until this tower, which will just give you more information. And if you keep doing this all the time, you just put shells onto creep waves all the time, your team will just get so much more information while you also just get more farm while you're doing stuff on the map. So that's like the strength of Dark Seer, right? Okay, let's see if there's anything nice to see here. And then I think we can wrap up. I mean, yeah, we just want to fight here. I probably leave here, run to another lane, and push out the wave. And that's exactly what I did, right? What I said before here. I will probably shell the wave right now and then leave again. Shell the wave and leave. Yeah, now I'm out of resources, I just run base. But as you can see here, it's just the same pattern, it repeats all the time, man. Like, pretty easy. You just shell creeps and you run out of the lane. To do anything else, like to farm creeps or to help your teammates. And then after you want a team fight, for example, you run to another wave, you shell the waves, just to keep them pushing into the enemies. This is just constant pressure onto the enemies. This is kind of like playing against an anti-mage. If you're playing against Dark Seer, you're kind of playing against an anti-mage. You're just pressuring all the side lanes all the time, and you're just running after the waves that Dark Seer shelled, and you just have to occupy all the freaking areas that Dark Seer just put in one shell, right? Like for Dark Seer, it just takes 1 second to put a shell and then you can leave. But enemies, they just have to TP there to defend the waves. They have to kill every creep by themselves, especially if it's a support. Like imagine a Crystal Maiden having to deal with a full wave with a shield from Dark Seer, man. It's so annoying. Like you can just occupy so much time from the enemies just by putting 1 shell and then leaving. Like it's so great. That's what you want to do as Dark Seer. So now I want to show you some spell interactions with like the wall and how to use wall and vacuum. So the first thing is, if the enemies have any items like diffusal, for example, like passive items, or auras like Vlad's. Let's also show pipe. Right, if enemies have items like this that provide passive effects to their team or just to their hits. Also like Skadi, for example, if you wall this guy, the illusion just gets the Vlad's aura. And as you can see, I also have Vlad's aura and pipe just because of this illusion. And then also it applies the mana burn from the diffusal, right, as you can see. So if you can wall targets that either have like this aura items, in most games it's like the enemy offlaner that carries around the pipes, the Vlads. You want to try to get those people into the wall, and then also the enemy carries. Like the anti-mage, for example, with the mana burn, or like the diffusal carriers as Phantom Lancers, maybe Slark, like all those heroes that build passive things, right? You want to try to look for items like this in the wall. And then also the enemy's passives will also apply. For example, counter helix. If I wall this guy and he hits the illusion, you will see the illusion also starts spinning. Right, like all the passives from the enemies, you also get them. Like you get the anti-mage mana burns, you get the PL ultimate, like just those kind of passive spells. Like the spins of X, there are so many cool passive spells that you can try to look for that help your team if you wall the enemies. That are just helpful on your illusions. You should try to look out for those targets to wall. Then another thing is, how do we actually want to place the wall? Like if you imagine this X is like standing over here, and you want to go on him, and you expect him to retreat like this way, right? Like you think he will run this way. You could either place the wall, like this for example. This is how most people do it. Like they just randomly place the wall like this for example, and then the enemy just runs out. Which is kind of bad, but the better way to place the wall, like if you expect this guy to run like this, is you want to place the wall, refresh, like best case scenario would be like this. So if he has to run here, he has to run like the full duration of the wall. He just can't go outside the wall really, right? And he's just slowed by the full wall. This would be like the perfect wall setup. So you want to try to hit the enemies with like a long side of the wall and not just like 90 degrees to him. If you place it like this, he can just run outside the wall pretty quick in like 2 seconds, and then he's not slowed anymore. So you'd rather try to put the wall into his complete retrieve path. Like this, if you would run this way. And then he has to get like the full wall slow. Or just run into a direction that you don't want, like here for example. What is the next thing? How do we actually use vacuum and wall? So usually you want to initiate with vacuum first and then wall while they're disabled by vacuum. Like you could also put the wall first and then vacuum onto the wall, but the thing is the wall has like a cast time, as you can see here. Right? Like it takes like half a second. And this cast time, if people are like not slowed and they are just running away from you, it is pretty hard to catch them if you're casting the wall first. Right? They will just spread when they see you, and then it's kind of hard to catch them. But if you like cast vacuum first, like let's imagine those guys are just running away, and I just cast vacuum like this and insta wall onto the vacuum while they're still pulled in by the vacuum. The cast time of the wall doesn't matter, right? Like they will actually be disabled from the vacuum pull while I'm casting the wall. And then also I can perfectly place the wall onto the target or onto the point that I just clicked the vacuum. So if I click vacuum here, I just insta click wall onto the same point where the vacuum lands, and then all of them just get walled and an illusion of every one of them spawns. So this way it is like really easy to place walls on someone. But there's also another way that applies especially in like 1 or 2, maybe 3-man team fights. And this is when there's someone, especially solo, that you want to catch, you can just wall him, and then once you run outside the wall, you can just vacuum him back inside the wall, and then he's slowed for a long duration, right? So you just use the wall before, and then once he's like outside the wall, you just pull him in the wall again. I think those are like the main ways to use wall and vacuum. Later in teamfight, you definitely want to use like the blink dagger, and I can show you like the refresher blink dagger combo for the late game with Shivers and stuff. If you guys want an arcane blink, this would be like your late game inventory, and then also with the parallel wall. Your combo could look like this: you activate Shivers, you blink in, vacuum them, you can vacuum then again. For example, like this. Maybe put a second Shivers. You have so many illusions, people are just stuck in the middle of all the fucking walls. Like if they run to the left, if they run to the right, they get fucking walled, and if they run away from you, they also get walled again. Like this would be like the perfect setup to win a team fight in a late game. Okay guys, so this video was pretty long, and there's still so much to cover. I will probably do like more Dark Seer videos in the future, because this is just like the basics of the hero, and there's still so much more to talk about with like combos and skill builds and how to lane and stuff, especially like playing in team fights and so on. But this video is already so long that I didn't want to do like half an hour more. So I think that's it for today. I would really advise you guys giving this hero a shot. He's so much fun. He's so different. He's like the most individual hero in Dota, I'd say. Like, this hero doesn't rely on killing people in the lane and stuff. He's just like outplaying them. You just need like a big brain to play this hero, I feel like. He's so creative. You can do so much creative stuff with this hero. It's just worth giving him a shot, man. He's so much fun. Try him out. And also, he has one of the best voice lines. Like, just check this out. And then also there's this one, the Master Tier.
We are not so different, my enemies and I. Except my brain is much larger.
It's pretty cool to spam those voice lines also in the game after one team fight. Yeah. So, thank you guys for watching. If you have any suggestions, feel free to like write down in the comments below or join me on Twitch. The link is in the description below. There will also be a link to the in-game guide of Dark Seer in the description that you can just click on, subscribe, and then you can find my my in-game guide and use this one. And yeah, have a nice day. See you guys. Bye bye.